Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Welcome to day 8 of spoiler season for patch 3.25 and the upcoming Settlers of Kelgir expansion. I'm noticing that I'm running out of fingers here, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Today we've got one overt teaser, one covert teaser, although the covert teaser is just a repeat of things that have come up before, and an important clarification. Let's start with the covert teaser, and that is yet another dead totem hiding in the corner of this video. There's been one in every video so far, I believe. We did cover that in one of the earlier videos. I think it may have been the day 4 one. And if you did miss it, I'll put a link at the end of this video to the playlist that includes all of the previous teaser videos that I've put out. So that's the covert teaser. The other thing that some people have speculated, this is not the first time that we've seen a character using multiple steel rings. Steel rings are a base that have really fallen off in popularity. They have a very high minimum level 80, and they're one of the Atlas bases, which are ones that you can't get until you're deep in maps. They also used to be locked to certain maps in the 3.9 era of the Atlas, although that's since changed and now they can drop pretty much anywhere. Steel rings have not aged very well. They add a fair amount of physical damage to attacks, but they're limited somewhat because their interaction with Facebreaker is so good that as a result they end up being pre-nerfed because Facebreaker exists. Now it's possible Grinding Gear Games have decided to do one or two things here. They could have buffed Steel Rings without nerfing Facebreaker, in which case we're going to see a lot of Facebreaker users, especially at low gear level. Or they might have decided to buff the Steel Ring but nerf Facebreaker at the same time. Both of those feel possible to me, but it's also possible that this is a nothing burger because we have seen Steel Rings on characters in teaser videos in previous leagues, and it hasn't meant anything. So in short, what we've got to say there is we don't know if there's anything to do with the Steel Rings. All of that said though, today's main announcement is one that's going to have a big impact once you get deep into endgame, and this is the addition of a 6th map device slot. There's been a little bit of a clarification because the wording of the video that Grinding Gear Games put up was a little bit ambiguous. For most players, the 5th map device slot will now be unlocked by doing a Maven 10-way fight, and the 6th map device slot will be unlocked by completing a tier 17 map. You do have the option of doing them in reverse order if you prefer, but given that tier 17 maps tend to be quite a lot harder than a Maven 10-way fight, I don't think many people will take up that option. It is important to note that despite the ambiguous wording in the Grinding Gear Games video, you do need to do both of these unlocks. It's not enough to do 2 copies of the Maven 10-way fight. If you are struggling with getting the final map device unlock, the best way to do it is going to be in Fortress Map, unless there's a major rebalance of tier 17 maps. Fortress Map is by far the easiest of the bosses to kill, and additionally, Fortress Map is guaranteed to be the tier 17 that drops if you're running a Strand map or a Dunes map. There's a few other maps as well, but Strand and Dunes always drop Fortress, and because Strand and Dunes both have unique versions on the Atlas, then they're almost guaranteed to still be on the Atlas in 3.25. This is going to have some major impacts on endgame farming, but it's not going to address a lot of the major concerns people have raised with the 3.24 endgame. And that's because Scarabs multiply together so well, or at least the rare Scarabs tend to multiply well with the regular ones, that the best way to use Scarabs tends to be to only focus on one mechanic with all your Scarabs. So for instance, let's consider the Domination Scarab of Terrors. This is a pretty rare Scarab, and it causes every shrine that's present in your map to have a map boss with it. That map boss will then drop the same loot that a map boss would drop normally, and this can include all of the Atlas mini-boss maps, Shaper Guardian maps, Elder Guardian maps, Elder Slayer Citadel maps, and also Synthesis unique maps. Now in the 3.24 version of the game, the best way to use a Domination Scarab of Terrors is to stick it in your map device alongside 3 copies of the classic Domination Scarab. So you get a total of 6 shrines that are added by Scarabs, and each one of them gets modified by the Domination Scarab of Terrors. In 3.25, if nothing else changes, the correct way to use this Scarab will be to use 4 classic Domination Scarabs, which is a full set, alongside your Domination Scarab of Terrors and alongside your map. So essentially, in the absence of anything that limits the number of related Scarabs that you can put into the map device, this is not really going to change the meta very much. It's going to mean that the rarest Scarabs will still be min-maxes only, and the less rare Scarabs will be things people might experiment with if they don't know whether they like a particular mechanic or not, or if they want to learn a bit about it, or alternately they'll be something you can use when you're not interested in trading for the perfect Scarab for your particular setup. So if we are able to stack 5 Scarabs that are closely related, like 4 copies of the classic Domination Scarab plus the 1 Domination Scarab of Terrors, that's going to be pretty dominant in the meta. And I think most people's Atlas setup will reflect this. What you'll do is you'll spec into a whole bunch of just general good stuff points on your Atlas, then you'll pick up 2 different mechanics that you might interact with via Scarabs, and each map that you run, you'll either put in 5 Scarabs that relate to mechanic A, and Mechanic B will then be pretty lackluster in that map if it spawns, or you put in 5 that relate to Mechanic B, and Mechanic A will be lackluster if it spawns in that map. I really think it would be a big improvement if they make it so that you can only use 3 Scarabs from one particular family, but we'll see exactly what they've got planned there when we get a bit closer. Now, a couple of other things Grinding Gear Games put into this release that were really funny. They put in some of their prototypes for what the 6-way map device should look like. And I really have to say, I love the Tabula Rasa one. I hope that this becomes available as an MTX. And of course, it wouldn't be a Path of Exile video without a completely chaotic evil option, which is having 5 that are not in a symmetric display, and then having a 6th one that is spinning around all of the others. Anyways, that is the news for today, Day 8 of Teaser Season. I'm going to leave it there. May Evalobs have interesting results.